Hi, Ra. It's a pleasure to have you today. Thank you for joining.
Hey, Julian. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to our conversation about the oneness experience.
Absolutely. So we both met in Kyoto, and we started with that oneness experience that we both had, and we had so much in common that I decided to go a little deeper in that conversation. So this is where we are here now. Could you start up by talking a little bit about yourself and just do a brief
Mhm.
introduction?
Yes, sure. My entire life has been about spirituality. My name is Ra Rejter. I'm a spiritual awakening mentor. I had my first awakening when I was really young, and my life became a spiritual journey, even though I was doing many different things earlier in my life, acting, photography, then software development, etc. I went through the dark night of the soul, the ups and downs, which made me feel like even though I had success, even though I had fame and I had everything I wanted in life, at the same time it felt empty. And it started making me look more and more for the spiritual truth. And eventually I found it. And having gone through this experience multiple times at multiple levels, I felt it was my life's calling. My higher self was inviting me, oneness was inviting me to share this with others. So I am now a spiritual awakening mentor, and I help people navigate their spiritual awakening journey and help them find the divinity and oneness within.
It's wonderful. I love that.
Thank you.
And so the oneness experience is something we have in common, you and me, because, well, as you said yourself, but I'm going to ask you a little bit more about it. It's a very particular experience. It is very difficult to express it using
Mm.
words. But, well, first foremost, you mentioned you had that experience. Can you explain to us a little bit what led you to that experience?
I've had multiple experiences of it, and the first one that was a full blown experience happened about in 2014, 2015. But I've had glimpses of that again and again throughout my life. The first one was when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I kind of saw that I'm much more than this little tiny toddler.
Hmm.
And I realized that I've had many past lives and I want to do my life's work that I'm here to do, follow my higher purpose. And I just couldn't wait. And I cried to God, Divine Mother, as I called. And I said, I don't want to wait anymore. I want to do my life's work right now. But that was not like a full blown experience, but more of a remembrance with connection to oneness and my higher self. But the first time I went into this fully was in South India. There's a place called Thiruvannamalai. It's a powerful place of spirituality of Ramana Maharshi. Many people know this
Hmm.
saint who talks about self-inquiry, and the mountain called Arunachala is there. That's where I had it with my first enlightened teacher. Um, I was looking for an enlightened teacher for about 7 years before I finally found one that I could really resonate with. And I surrendered myself completely to the guidance of Ramana, the mountain, the actually which I saw later. Earlier, I was like more associating them with form, but I associated those with names and forms for practical purposes. But even then I had an understanding that this is oneness speaking to me, or God, or higher self. I consider all these terms the same, really. But I saw that this was the moment that I had prepared for all my life, especially the last 7 years. I was looking for enlightenment, I was looking for self realization, I was looking for the truth or God. And when I found this teacher, I knew something in me really felt that it's going to happen very soon. And because of that, I was led to give up all my doubt, give up all my fear, give up all things that I was holding on to with my ideas of this and that, who I am, etc. And because of that surrender and being with a teacher who does what is known as transmission teaching, which is not just teaching in words, but there's an energetic depth to that, which is what I learned also from my second enlightened teacher,
Mhm.
who I worked with later and had many experiences. So with the first teacher, what happened? I was in a retreat, and it was in a beautiful place. Everybody um, was new to me, but this was the first time I was meeting them all, and I was in the teaching, and the teacher said a few words which felt really significant. Not just the meaning of the words, but with the words came the energy. The words were, "It is in the seeing." Very simple words, not words I haven't heard before.
Mhm.
It is in the seeing. But the context around it, my understanding of it, as part of what was happening, it came as a kind of a wave of energy, and it hit me, and I had a realization of what these words really meant experientially,
Mhm.
in a very deep realization kind of way. It is in the seeing. And as that realization kind of took over my being, my mind started first freaking out because it felt it was losing control. It was like, what is happening? And there was a kind of a confusion from my mind.
Mhm.
And then it started crumbling, it started grinding to a halt. Everything that I knew about myself just stopped. The whole story about life, about the world, about me, about others, about what was going on, where I was, what I wanted, everything just stopped. And in that stopping, this entire kind of like thing I was always familiar with, or mostly always, it was always present, the inner monologue of the
Mhm.
mind, which also brings the past and the future and all these ideas of separation, stopped. And with that stopping, that first crumbling, and then it was like an explosion. It just kind of, and then it became, and it just kind of, uh, I I became light. I saw my true nature as light. All these words just feel kind of very limited to say, like as you were saying. Even to say I became light is wrong, because I have been light the whole time.
Mhm.
I took myself to be a human being,
Mhm.
and in that stopping, that confusion of who I am and all the story just was removed, so I could see who I am. And in that experience, there was nothing but light, and my body, I was just sitting there in on the ground in like a kind of how you meditate kind of posture,
Mhm.
and my body just became so still, and I couldn't move, and it didn't even seem like my body existed when I was in it. And this was for 3.5 hours long.
Mm.
And in this state, I completely had no idea of anything, including my name, etc. And I could see all around myself, 360 degrees up, down, everywhere. And my body's eyes were closed at the same time. And I could see everything all around me. And at the same time, I didn't feel separate from it. And everything, even I could experience all that was happening, but as light. It's very hard to describe this.
Mhm.
So I could hear there was like a far away, there was a sound of like a grass cutter, like a
Mhm.
thing, that engine, um, and I could hear it as light or see it as sound. I don't know,
Mhm.
and uh, my body was right there, but there was no idea that it was my body, and everything with this light, it was also full of joy. So everything just brought joy. The sound of the engine, which would annoy me otherwise when we were in the teaching and we were listening to the teacher and there's this sound going on. But here it was just absolutely blissful, every single thing. And I was just in that ball of light all around me, which was golden in color. But there were also like differentiations. There were so many things going on in there, right? So I was just gone, and I still wonder what would have happened to me if I was just left there.
Mhm.
Because what happened was this was during the um, evening gathering
Mhm.
of the teacher and the students. We call it satsang, which stands for meeting with the truth. And in this gathering, this started after this happened. Everybody left. The teacher left, the other students left, and they all had dinner. And they were all wondering, where is this guy? And so there was a person who fed everybody, one of the students. She would cook, and she was very loving, motherly kind of figure. She was a little bit older, and she got worried and started looking for me and came there. Somebody told her he was still sitting there. So she came there and tried to see what's going on with me. And I was just there with my eyes closed and no movement, nothing. And she held my hand, shook me, and all that. I didn't even feel this for so long. But then, after a really long time of doing this, I heard my name from far away. And first, when I heard it, I didn't even know it was my name. And
Mhm.
she was trying to wake me up and say, "Oh, are you okay? Wake up, wake up. It's okay.
Mhm.
Come back." So only when I heard that name again and again and again, I was like, then there was like a curiosity or something. What is this sound? And that's when I started coming back from that absolute oneness
Mm-hmm.
to like, what's going on? It started with like a question or curiosity about my name. And then I slowly understood that this is my name. And then, with the understanding that this is my name, the story of me started kind of slowly coming back. And then I was like, oh, I'm I'm here. And slowly I kind of started feeling more and more what's going on in more human terms, but it took me a while to come back out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to take her help to, you know, walk and things like it took me a while to move my body. Took me a while to open my eyes, everything. And eventually with her help I could go back. And I couldn't eat. She had saved a plate and everything for me. So I couldn't eat. Every movement of my body felt like an entire journey. uh, and there was, and still it was just like, it felt so joyful, all body movements and everything. So it was overwhelming for me,
Mm-hmm.
anything that I did.
Wow.
So yeah, this whole experience turned my life upside down, and I had more experiences after that too. But yeah, this was something that really just changed everything for me.
I see. That's a wonderful
Mm.
experience. Were you able to share that experience right after with the group? Maybe with the mentor, the teacher that was there to ask him a question about it, or
Yeah, I couldn't put words. I have tried to remember and recall
Mhm,
and understand this experience
mhm,
so many times and learn from this. And I just wanted to go back into it as soon as I could. In a couple of days, I was like, I want that back again. But when I asked my teacher, he's like, this is what is known as samadhi. And I knew that, and that's what I wanted, but it was not as I expected.
mhm,
It was very different than anything my mind could conceive of, because thoughts are very dualistic, and this was so powerful, experiential. And yeah, I got some explanation from my teacher, but mostly it was like, it's all happening well. And I wasn't so afraid or confused or anything, because I was really looking for it. So I was very receptive to it. I was very joyful, and it was celebratory for me. For many of my students
mhm.
who I help, I often hear it was difficult. I often hear they were confused. I often hear it really made things bad for them. For me, it was not difficult in the beginning when I was with the teacher, because I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. It only became difficult when I tried to integrate this experience with life,
Mm.
because everything had changed. I had changed, and I couldn't fit back into life. Uh, I couldn't be practical anymore.
So let me ask you a question before we go into the effect of that experience. You said that you were told that it was samadhi, but
Mm.
from your point of view, it was a little different than what you expected. How
Mhm.
was it different?
So, what I expected was my projection of what samadhi is. And even though, e- if I had the very right expectations, let's say, even though I knew exactly what was going to happen from my thoughts, even then it wouldn't feel exactly the same, because experiential realization is always very different than our expectations. It's like comparing the world map to the world. Like if you have a little globe in your hand and say, oh, this is the earth, you're right, this is the earth. But is it really? I mean, this is how it looks. This is, you can see where all the cities are, where borders start and end, etc. But being there in that place, like if you look at Paris on the map, or even like see pictures and all that, being in Paris feels very, very different than looking at Paris on the
Hmm.
map. So that's how different it was, even though I had read about it, wanted it for so long,
Hmm.
heard about different experiences from people and different teachers about it. Actually experiencing samadhi blew all that away.
I see. That's interesting.
Mm.
So let's go back to that experience then. So you had that experience. It was not what you expected, but it turned your whole worldview around. And here you are now, beginning what you said was the most difficult part of it, which is what do I do with it now?
Mm.
Should I go back? Or what are the other questions that you had in mind?
So, first of all, it was so much joy, so much bliss. Um, and right after that, after a couple of days, I had another experience. Um, and a couple of days after, another experience. But they were all different. It was not, this was the highest intensity and kind of clear and totally in that. And then it was more like a bridge to that experience,
Hmm.
from this place where I was to that experience. And like the second experience was very much, there was no self, there was no I, me, mine, but at the same time I could move my body, I could talk, I could, you know have a beautiful, lunch and conversation. But at the same time I was completely stuck in the present moment so deeply. This was also about 3 hours, that I had no idea of anything about myself or the world somehow, but I could function.
Hmm.
And there was no I that was functioning. It was just all happening. It was so crazy. Like at the restaurant, I didn't know what I was going to order. And I'm just seeing how my hand went to pick up the menu. And as the waiter came, I just flipped like this and I pointed at this. And I had no idea what was happening the whole time.
Hmm.
So, so in that place, I was still in oneness, but it was not like a full on kind of thing. But because I was there without me, I, me, mine as a separate container,
Hmm.
it felt like oneness too. And there were other, different ways, perspectives of oneness. So I saw that life is giving me all these different experiences to kind of enrich my experiential understanding of oneness again and again. And the more I went through these experiences, the more something deeper in me really got it. And eventually I started re reverse engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Like as soon as the iPhone comes out, there are a few companies that take the iPhone and they're like, "Oh, we are gonna, try to make this exactly
Yeah.
look like this thing, and it's a fake."
Yeah.
So my mind was like, "How can I reverse engineering this thing?" Right? So because I so badly wanted to go back there. So the first problem was I wanted back, and there was also questions about me, like, oh, did I go wrong in, why did it, what would happen if that, kind woman wouldn't have woken me up? There was also like a kind of a regret
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, if it happened, if I was sitting in a cave, maybe I could have gone into 3 year long meditation or something. I don't know, all sorts of ideas which uh, I had about spirituality
Mm-hmm.
came up. But the main problem happened when I tried to integrate back into life. After my teacher left, he lived in Europe, and I was only with him for about 10 or 15 days.
Mm-hmm.
10 days was the retreat, and there were a couple of days before and after. I met him on the first day of the retreat itself. Um, Actually, one day before. But anyway, he had to leave, and after he left, I was there in this, you know, beautiful little spiritual town.
Mm-hmm.
And it was as if I was born again. And I had no idea where I was, what was happening. So I had memories, but I couldn't connect with them. It was as if like I had to relearn how to walk, relearn how to talk. In some
Mm-hmm.
points, I would have these kind of states where I would just go into that again, and I just felt as if I landed suddenly into an alien world, and I didn't know what was happening at all. And I was looking at everything like, wow, as if I'd never seen that before. So, yeah, it took me a while to really figure things out again. And before this, I was acting in movies. I was doing photography. I was leading a big photography and videography project. Um, and I just couldn't continue anything. I had to give up everything I was doing and just live there because I didn't know what to do anymore.
Wow.
So yeah, I had later I had to break down in front of my photography client, who was also a friend. I was just so helpless. I'm so sorry. I wanted to finish your project. I know they're your wedding pictures, but I'm so sorry. I can't do anything. And my movie projects where I was the lead actor in them, and
Oops.
the projects had to stop. Yeah, so it was just, yeah, big effects on my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, well, I've been through also that period of time when after the one experience, everything changed inside you because you see things through a different, set of eyes, and also
Mhm.
what you thought you would be doing, it doesn't matter anymore. Somehow it doesn't have the
Mhm.
same, taste, I would say. And so, what's next is the big question. What do we do with this? And the
Mhm.
experience you had is definitely something you wanted to have, and as you said, you wanted to go back to it. What was actually the thought process between willing to go back to it, but also knowing that you have a life here, and
Mhm.
were there any, questions from you saying that, so I experienced that, am I supposed to experience it again, or is it something that was just a one-off or just a few times, or what? I'm just wondering actually what was happening in your head at the time.
Yeah. Um, it was full of questions for me. It was like, I later realized this after a lot of questioning and understanding and trying to reverse engineer, trying to go back desperately. I tried every meditation technique, everything I knew which worked before, which would bring me into higher states of meditation. None of them worked until I really said, okay, I'm just going to let life do it for me. And I could go back to it. I sat down in on the mountain. There is a cave called Virupaksha Cave on the Arunachala mountain where I lived in Tiruvannamalai. And this was a cave where Ramana Maharshi also meditated there for, he lived there and meditated for many years. And before that, there was a saint who also lived there. So I said, I'm going to sit here and meditate as long as I can. They open in the morning, and in the like 4 p.m. or something, they would close. So I said, I'm just going to meditate here as long as it takes. I'm going to go back into samadhi, into oneness, until that I won't stop. I don't care if I'm hungry, thirsty, whatever. And in that experience, finally, I could go back. But this was after about, I don't, it was many, many months of trying all these different things which used to work before.
Mhm.
But I realized it really took a lot of refinement and letting go of ideas which I thought would work. It was like Thomas Edison finding 10,000 different combinations that didn't work before.
Mhm.
He finally found the tungsten light bulb, right? So um I don't know if it was tungsten, but anyway. So yeah, I had so many questions, and finally I realized, which I talk about a lot with my students, that life gives you a sample. Life gives you, okay, here, you haven't really done much to earn this, but that was my, like, I earned it, I did this. But I realized this is who I am. And life showed it to me. Life gave me a sample of it. And it's just like you go to Costco, or I don't know what you have where you live, some of these big stores, they give you a sample when you go, and the sample is free, and you really enjoy it. But if you really want to keep it and enjoy it, you have to buy it,
Mhm.
right? So I was like, okay, life has given me a sample, many different samples. Now I have to really refine myself, let go of all my limitations, and follow the spiritual path to actually make my my being um, pure enough, or it's not even purity. It's about letting go of the doubt, letting go of the fear, letting go of the confusion, which actually led to this in the first place, right? To accept it fully, to integrate it, is the work. So I saw that and I committed myself to that, and I made it, I decided this is exactly what I'm going to do. So I just lived there. I went back and, took care of some of my affairs with the photography stuff and the film stuff. I was like, okay, I'm gonna uh, wind up with everything, and just came back to that place where all this happened. and I didn't have any money at the time. Somehow, life provided everything for me. I got a house there. Somebody paid for the house. Everything just it just worked, and I wherever I go, I would find people looking for guidance. I would just sit on the mountain, and somebody would come and ask me, "How do I meditate?" you know, and oh, do you know about Advaita Vedanta? And somehow my mouth spoke the answers.
Mhm.
And I had a few informal students who supported me and all that, and I just lived there. And I would wake up in the morning, didn't have any ideas, didn't have any plans, didn't have any what am I going to do today. It would just unfold, and I would have every day was just the most beautiful work of art.
Mm.
Every day was just flowing so
Mhm.
perfectly and beautifully. I would live really well without much money or anything involved.
Mhm. Fully
And
present in the moment.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes. And this went on for 3 or 4 years. Um,
Okay.
and and then I had a realization that in order to bring this to more and more people, I have to really integrate it to a point that I have to integrate being very practical, being in the world, not just in a city like Tiruvannamalai, where everything is kind of conducive for this kind of spiritual thing. Like I could sleep on the roadside with my monk friends, and I would get served, and I've done that, and, but it wouldn't work in the bigger cities. It wouldn't work probably in the West if I applied the same thing. So something in me, my higher self told me that okay, now you are going to learn structures. Now you need to learn discipline and all this. And earlier I had no idea of discipline. It was just flow. So then that's when I met my second enlightened teacher, who was a Buddhist mystic, who who then changed my life all over again. And then I went much more into the practical and integrative path. But that's whole another story.
Mhm.
Mm.
That's so interesting. The way you try to integrate, but also willing to go back, willing to have that experience again, and then from there moving on to, I know, a life with more structure or maybe a more practical way, or because that's also one my own experience brought me some questions. And the first question I had was the experience of oneness itself is so beautiful, so full of joy, love. It's so real, more than just reality, more than the reality to live through that body itself. That I started to think, so which way is reality, and am I supposed to choose from one another, or is this something that I'm supposed to bring into my everyday life? Am I supposed to be in that state, but I won't be able to function anymore? So, what is it to be human, and why am I human and experiencing that? All that together. And so, sometimes you do have answers coming to you, and sometimes you don't. And if you don't have any answers, then it's fine. You just have to move along, and maybe one day you would have the answer, or more questions, or both,
Yeah.
or none of them. And that's
Mm.
fine too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But going back to the everyday life, what do you do now? Or what should I say? How would you say that that experience itself has influenced what you do now?
Mm. Well, those experiences really shaped everything about me, because what I thought I was me at that time, I could see very clearly it was false. And it kind of was taken away from me for a period completely, that I had to reform like an understanding of who I was. That was the phase when I had to relearn how to walk and talk. And when all that was happening, it's, you know, later when I went back to Bangalore where my family lived, etc., there had to be like a reconciliation of, you know, what I had discovered then with what was my identity and my family and all these things. So there was a big period of trying to see how to make sense of this from a kind of being a person perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would speak with my teacher, and I would only meet him like once a year. And for many years, I didn't meet him. Also, like he came twice to Tiruvannamalai the next year, and then um, didn't come at all for a few years. And I just tuned into whatever life was guiding me, and I saw that life is really who I am. I am not separate from life. I am not separate from anything. So it was helpful to have a teacher, to have that guidance, etc. But just tuning into what life really wanted
Mm-hmm.
was all that is needed. So it completely changed everything from for me since then. And even when I later tried to, go back into the normal world and do stuff, um, later when I eventually learned computer programming and things like that as part of my spiritual path with the Buddhist teacher who used computer programming as a way of developing meditative practices, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always seeing, no matter what I did, how does it align with who I am, my experience. So yeah, at first I was trying to be just spiritual. I was like, this is what has happened to me. I should look at life only spiritually and everything. And one feedback my first teacher at that point gave me was, learn to be human again.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to just experience life normally again. Because I was looking everything through that lens, looking at everything, analyzing it like how it's one, how it's, God in everything, how there is light in everything. But because I was just in that way of being now, I couldn't relate to people so much, you know, and I started becoming kind of isolated. I couldn't speak to regular people who didn't understand spiritual things, and I just kind of felt a huge distance between me and my past friends. And um, yeah, that's when I went through depression,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt alone in this. I felt nobody, even my best friends, would understand what was going on with me. So I didn't feel heard, I didn't feel seen. I had all these amazing experiences, but I still went back into darkness, which was very interesting. Uh, and in my mentorship, I hear this a lot. A lot of my students have had these bright experiences and then went into depression. And going through this, I went through these ups and downs again and again. So that's what me made me actually realize that there is this pattern, which after I started mentoring others and helping others, I saw everybody's going through the same kind of pattern. So yeah, even though that changed everything about me for the better, it had an effect of my ego becoming so distant and kind of confused about practical stuff and spirituality being incompatible and I being incompatible with the world. And I started wondering why I should even live anymore.
Mhm.
I started wondering what's my purpose, and everything felt just so meaningless because I had seen in those experiences that I am the light and I'm not this body and not this person I thought I was. So I was like, who cares? So it doesn't matter if I live or not. So there were times that I didn't eat, didn't drink even a sip of water for 4 days at a time because I was like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Uh, and I got really isolated. I wouldn't, um, you know, come out of my room for days and days and days at a time. And eventually, in the depth of that darkness, something changed, and slowly I started reconnecting with people after going through a lot of things.
Mhm.
So I had a very difficult time, but it was not immediately after this. But because of this,
Mhm.
the changes that it
I see.
made. So yeah, it was as if my entire life was turned upside down, and I had no idea what was going on.
So, what was the trigger that helps you bounce back to
Mm,
maybe who you are now and how you see life now?
mm. So first of all, trusting life internally. What got me into that dark place was trying to do it by myself, not accepting help, not connecting with others, and isolating myself. Thinking because I've had these experiences, because, you know, I have gone into samadhi, which was what all that I was looking for so many years. Now I knew everything. So actually, the way I got into it was self sabotage, my ego trying to, in a way, take back its power, but in a very sneaky way. What I now call it is spiritual ego, which is because it has had spiritual experiences, it takes those and makes it the new kind of ego story. So I became kind of trapped in my own ego story and went into depression and meaninglessness and hopelessness because of that. So then it was just so strong that I became completely against the entire world, which I had earlier seen that, oh, this is all God. So then I realized, oh, it has completely shifted upside down to be reframed by my ego as a very bad thing. So realizing what was happening, once I really hit the rock bottom, then something in me felt the trust in life again.
Mm.
And that was the beginning. Trusting life, becoming open, becoming willing to receive help. And that's when I I started connecting more and more with people who are spiritual and all that. Eventually, what really helped was having a teacher again, my second teacher, and his community, and getting support from people, getting a community of people who really understand and see your spiritual aspect, but also your human aspect.
Hmm.
And then there's a balanced way of interacting with the world and with people, and being able to talk about this and not getting a side eye or like, oh, that's weird or whatnot. And yeah, that's exactly what I provide in my mentorship too, because it that was so transformative for me. And without that, I wouldn't have been able to integrate it. And I know there are so many people, like some of my mentees have told me horror stories of when this kind of gift was given to them. Their parents thought this person was possessed or going crazy, and they have been admitted to the mental hospital and given all sorts of drugs. And, that actually screwed them up for many years.
Hmm.
So having the right kind of support system, having a mentor and a community, and being able to talk about it in a way that makes sense to you, gives you understanding of what's happening. Yeah, that is crucial.
It is
If,
crucial. That's right.
um,
I
mm.
completely understand that, especially because, as an experiencer myself, I know that finding the right words to talk about it is difficult enough, but yet you have to find the person you can talk to, which is
Yeah,
also
yeah.
very difficult.
Yes, yes, yes.
And if you
Mhm.
are lucky enough, you have a community of people you can talk with, which is another
Yeah.
level.
Mm. Yeah. Mm.
Do you, during those experiences, do you have a recollection of maybe a presence that was with you during that experience? That would be just like acting as a guide, or maybe right next to you so that you don't go too far, or have you heard, anything? I'm not going to say, advices or words or voices or from, someone that you cannot see with the eyes, but you would sense at least has a
Mm.
presence during those moments.
So it's interesting that before this full blown
Hmm.
experience, I've had many, many experiences which are kind of dualistic, where I was here and God was here, or you know, God taking whatever form of a deity. I've had many, many experiences like that before that. And with Shiva, with Shirdi Sai Baba, with other, gods and goddesses and energies and entities. I've also channeled before, and I've had very, very powerful experiences which kind of where with like there is a guide and I'm receiving something from them, taking help. But all these experiences which I experienced oneness, there was nothing else, there was nobody else. It was very impersonal. And it was also because my path was very much about that of non duality, Advaita Vedanta, which is all about there is no duality between you and God. This is like the OG or the original kind of philosophy, the ancient one where oneness and everything is one, all that comes from ancient India. So when I followed that path, I really just transformed spiritually in a way that earlier I was looking outside for guidance from somebody. And even here, even though there was a teacher that I had, in these experiences, it was very clear that the teacher and the student, it's just an illusion. And it was me guiding me through this experience of being me, and to see it clearly without the illusory idea of separation was the whole point of it. So there was no one to guide me, but there was so much deep trust that I didn't need any guidance.
Hmm.
There was so much inner knowing that I let it flow, and it just flowed perfectly. It was just happening so well, and I knew it was life unfolding by itself. And there was, like, in these experiences I saw that life is always just perfectly unfolding, but we then come and say, I did this, you did that, and then we put the story on top of what happened, but there is absolutely no story.
I see. That's very interesting. There's absolutely
Mm.
no story.
Mm.
And the non-duality you're talking about is also, something very specific to that oneness experience, because all of a
Mhm.
sudden, not only you're not able to make the difference between you and God or the universe or life, everything comes in just one
Yeah.
wonderful and very hard to express in words experience.
Yeah.
I'm going back to something you said earlier on when you said that you could see words and you can hear light.
Mhm.
That's also very specific to that experience, because I understand completely what you're talking about, because I did that experience too. And yes, you can see words and hear light, because at some point you're not able to make the difference between what is sound, what is vision, and
Mm.
something else that goes beyond the separation of all the different senses, correct?
Yeah. 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 So yeah, it's so hard to speak about this, but all senses are really kind of outward manifestations, but when you see them as they are, you are awareness. Our true nature, I realized, I am awareness, and I am being aware. That's it. And the sensory experience of it is actually what the makes the illusion seem real, that, oh, I am in this human body, I can feel my skin, see through these eyes, I can hear through these ears, I can taste through this tongue, I can smell like this. But actually, this is just a construct to kind of make us convinced that, oh, I have all these senses and this is how it works. And it's kind of a story again, you know, that we believe. And at the same time, even without any of these senses, in that moment when for 3.5 hours, I was able to experience everything fully and much more than the five senses without using any of my senses, because I was there as pure awareness of all that is. without any differentiation. So then I realized the senses, the physical senses, are here just as kind of a way for us to think we are using them. But in reality, we are the field of awareness itself. So hearing sound is a misnomer, seeing light is a misnomer, because you are not experiencing something else. You are what you are experiencing. You are the light that you are seeing, as well as the seer of the light, as well as the process of seeing. This comes back to the words which triggered this. It is in the seeing. It is in the seeing. So it really makes sense when you understand how there is nothing but awareness. And you, when awareness becomes aware of awareness itself, and there is nothing else. I mean, these are very abstract terms, you know. As we speak, it becomes very abstract. The deeper we go into this, it's just like really hard to make sense of anything that we are talking. But
But I think what you said,
only experientially it makes sense.
it does. Well, especially when you said uh, the only thing left is the field of awareness.
Mm,
I think that's a very good description of it.
mm, yeah.
That's what I feel.
Mm, mm,
There's something I want to ask you when you said that um, you experience that you're not separated from life. Life is you, you are life, and you are the seer, but you are also the thing you observe. There's no difference between that. When
mm,
you are going back to your experience as a human being, do you have your own personal way of applying this experience to your everyday life? Is there certain, maybe internal position that you take uh, to be able to, as much as you can, um, be that uh, field of awareness? It's
mm,
a very long
mm.
question, but
um,
I hope you can.
but yes, so in the beginning, like as I was saying, I was trying to reverse engineer it and trying to apply it in my day-to-day life. But then I realized what I was doing is I took a mental map of my experience,
Mhm.
my definitions, my ideas. Oh, this is how to do it. This is what happened. This is what I should to do to make it happen again. And I took all that as a big bunch of concepts, and I was trying to apply it with my conceptual understanding to what was happening. And then I realized that was actually stopping it from happening
Mhm.
because I was trying to apply it. So, after many months of doing everything I can like this, which never worked, then a realization dawned upon me that this is my true nature. It was obvious, but it became obvious again after being completely hidden, even though it was right there. This was my true nature. There is a phrase in Sanskrit which came to me at that time. This is sahaja samadhi. Sahaja means natural, or sahaja sthiti, another very similar. Sahaja sthiti or sahaja samadhi is your natural state of being. So I realized I cannot do this, because if I try to do this, I become the doer.
Mm-hmm.
I go into that way of kind of trying to wrangle with life, fight with life, and trying to make something happen. But if I consciously let go of this doing, and come back to what is natural to me, which is through letting go. It's not by doing anything new, but actually letting go of whatever was doing. So I made a video on YouTube about this very simple method that, like, I didn't even call it a method or anything. But when I wanted to teach this to my students, I kind of put it into a structure. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have to use words to it, but this is so natural to me. But how do I tell it to others to do this? So then I put this kind of a structure around it, which I just call breathe, notice, let go.
Mm-hmm.
You do it with every breath. And you do it with the breath because it makes you connected and present. And then you notice not just what's happening in your mind, but you notice everything. Notice where you are very present in the moment. And then you let go. And letting go means just kind of, instead of grasping what our mind likes to do all the time, grasp, 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 and follow a story and kind of continue worrying about this. So you just let go, you disengage from that. So you breathe, notice, let go, and come back to your natural state again and again and again. And it takes doing it again and again and again, because the mind tries to grasp again and again and again. So you counter that, and eventually you come back to a place where there is no grasping, there is no doing, there's no need to figure anything out, there is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, nothing to hide or run from. And all there is life, and all there is this moment. And you simply be, and you simply are in oneness. This is exactly very compatible with Ramana Maharshi's highest teaching, which is simply be. I also made another video about it recently too, which is, it goes back to the same root. And yeah, that's and there are, of course, I teach my students other techniques and stuff to kind of help them prepare to do this, or bring their life in balance to be able to practice this. But all of these different techniques are kind of various ways to help you come back to who you are, because there is nothing else out there.
Mm-hmm.
You just find it back within.
Do you have students coming to you and ask, please help me have that experience of oneness because I want to have that experience?
Yes, yes. People who have had some kind of a glimpse of it, but they want more. Um, and people who are trying for their spiritual journey to progress in different ways. So, for one example, there's my former mentee. She was an MIT graduate. You met her in Japan. She was also there
Mm-hmm.
with the group. She was an MIT graduate, very strong in her mind, and she was a McKinsey consultant with a lot of structures about everything. So I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to think through this. So very strong mind. So she was able to go into high, beautiful meditations, but she was hitting that place just before going into samadhi. She couldn't. So she would have really nice experiences and stop, and just couldn't hit that go beyond that barrier. So she tried and tried and tried. She would meditate so much every day. And I was waiting for her to be ready. And there was this one time when I saw that she was ready and we were meditating together. And because I saw she was ready, see, with the first teacher doing this and my second teacher who taught me even more advanced skills of doing transmissions, I somehow know my being knows how to do this. So something in me recognized that and did that transmission where which is like giving an energetic support for her to do that. And that barrier broke and she fell into a void. She talks about this as like it's as if she fell into a void and there was nothing. And after that experience for 3 weeks, she had no thoughts. For 3 weeks, she was with her family, she was traveling, she was doing all sorts of things, and her thoughts completely stopped.
Mm.
And she was just in a flow and just in the present moment, like the whole time. And that is that was the breakthrough that she was really looking for but couldn't do it on her own. And that's the gift of having a mentor who has these skills of helping others energetically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I received from my both of my enlightened mentors,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what allowed me to progress so much and much faster than I ever could have hoped. And that's what I also help with to give it forward.
Give it forward. That's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for today and sharing, this whole experience, but also what you learned from it. Because I know there's a lot of people that are experiencing it, but it's always difficult to make sense of it and also to integrate it your
Mm.
own way. So having someone that can share that precious experience is um, really something special. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the questions and going really in depth into it, and um, for your curiosity and it's wonderful to be really heard and seen because you also had these experiences. So I really enjoyed this very much. Thank you.
Thank you.